Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is known for having a bunch of rare events, things like the eyeless animatronic screens, Shadow Bonnie or RWQ FSFASXC, and the Paper Pals. And, as some more seasoned fans might know, the game is also host to tons of cut and unused material, famously Puppet in Office, the Toxic Meter, the Mike Skull, etc. However, there is one mechanic that I've seen practically no one talk about, thanks to Folmic for pointing it out. The secret animatronics weren't meant to be seen for long. That metal clanging noise, that is exclusive to this mechanic and appears nowhere else in this game. Instead of the staring contest we have in the full release, they were originally planned to run away after half a second. Unfortunately, this mechanic appears to have been accidentally broken, which is something I'll talk about later in this video. This mechanic was intended to happen when you see Endo02 in both the left vent as you just saw, and in the prize corner, and also Shadow Freddy in parts and service. Now, I did make the odds slightly more favorable for this demonstration, but this mechanic is almost entirely functional aside from an odd mistake that incidentally disables it. There it is again. While I'm here, this specific frame of the puppet I've seen everywhere on unused or cut content stuff is not unused. It's just a very rare puppet hallucination. So, onto the technical part. The mechanic itself is extremely simple. It just counts up by 1 every frame you have the flashlight on and it's showing the character, and when it hits 30, it resets the timer, resets the random number, causes a bit over 3 seconds of signal interruption, and plays metalrun.wave. Now you might ask, that sounds very simple. Yeah, how could he have unintentionally broken it? Because blackout timer will never get to 30. There are 3 lines of code that constantly reset the value. That seems intentional, obviously he's constantly setting it back down to disable it. However, first, it's not really consistent with how he disabled other mechanics like Chica's in-office attack and the toxic meter. Those he either just made a condition not possible or removed the actual functional part of the mechanic. But also, it makes a lot more sense why this happened when you look at what the lines reset it to. If a blackout is occurring, which is something that shows up whenever you get attacked, it'll be constantly resetting it back to 1, and if not, it's constantly resetting it to 0. Now, these lines don't seem to have been intended to actually do anything in the game, they just look like debugging lines. He left in quite a bit of that from late in development, and the line right after is an attempted bug fix. Also to note, this mechanic uses a counter called Blackout Timer, and there's an additional counter made shortly thereafter called Blackout in Progress that has no code attached to it. It seems that when he tried to make these lines refer to Blackout in Progress, he instead clicked Blackout Timer, which looks identical and starts with the same word, but appears in the new condition list before Blackout in Progress. This would make sense as the 1 and 0 just represent whether the blackout should be showing up, he just set it to the wrong counter. Ordinarily, this would be fixed pretty quickly for basically any mechanic. Overwriting values tends to break things pretty overtly. But you should also take into account that these screens are relatively rare. Endo02 is 1 in 1,000 in the vents and 1 in 10 in the prize corner, but only if the puppet's already out. And Shadow Freddy might be 1 in 10 if all of the withers are out of parts and service, but at this time of development, he had also started work on the custom night, and it just so happens that that camera is not functional on night 7. So, because it's a relatively minor mechanic when it comes to the game functioning as a whole, in the rush to get out a sequel, along with every other cut and unused sequence he intentionally removed from the game, he also accidentally removed this one. Subscribe, like, or comment, or not, I really don't care.